It's 9 o'clock. Let's go. Doug, we're gonna go a little out of order on some stuff. Doug has a doctor's appointment and we need Doug to meet a quorum. Right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I guess I'm gonna call the meeting to order.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. By the way, Jim, I can go. Now you're covered. Now I'm covered. Yeah, well, thank you for making it. Okay.
Good luck.
Okay.
Yeah,
Roll-
good luck, Doug.
roll call.
Maybe we'll see you next month. Maybe
Roll
not.
call. We do have a quorum. Pete, Rich, Lou, and myself are here. Doug had to run. And Peggy's here as the liaison. Let's see, I believe the next item is a public comment. Do we have any public comments? Once, twice, 3 times. Approval of minutes from the last meeting. It was attached to, I reviewed it. It seemed accurate and complete. Did anybody review it? Have any changes to the meeting minutes from the last meeting? Move to approve.
Second.
Okay,
All in favor?
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Hey, Jim, can I have a copy, please? I'm sorry I'm late, but I had to give blood. Or
That's
I
a
did
good,
donate.
that's a good reason. Not an
Yeah, but
excuse.
it wasn't for that. It was. That's too much of a chicken for that.
Okay, moving down, items for discussion, pond. Oh, you're right, financial report. Unfortunately, we don't have a projector. I can't project it up. And Doug does the financials. So I have nothing to review on that.
Do we have any money? Oh, matters.
We do.
Yeah, we're did all the parameters for budget and for now, so.
There's nothing for us.
So we're flush.
No.
Unfortunately.
Water.
Okay.
The only challenge
That's
this year was
Go out.
on 47 and 48,
Right,
and they'll be offsetting feedback will move.
yeah, we'll do.
The annual budget is about 804,000. Year-to-date actual is 145,000. Amount encumbered is about 279,000, and the remaining balance is 378,000. So you're about 50% of budget spent and or encumbered at the moment.
I'm at 6 months.
No.
We're 1/4 level.
Yeah.
November, December,
Contractual thing.
January. You got 1/3 of the year.
And these numbers are through the end of December.
Wait, you have to say it.
It is.
Yeah, correct, sure.
Work with you.
Got it.
What on 48 gonna cost? I think it's under 200, under 195.
Yeah.
Goes to the
Yes, it's under the ITQ process.
Anything under ITQ is under 12.
Hey, Lynn.
Hey.
All right, I'm late. No problem.
Yeah, it'll be the day after.
Do we have to, we don't have to approve that?
Yes.
We do, okay.
Approve what?
40.
Yeah.
No, the financial.
No financials, no. If there's no comments.
Okay.
Nothing to approve.
Okay, moving down to the items for discussion, pond 48 recommendation. So we were working on and had contracted for 47 and 48. 48 went to Copeland. Copeland withdrew his bid. He filled up his calendar. He wasn't going to be able to get to it this year. So looking for a recommendation to keep on schedule. There had been 2 bids that we received, both Extreme Divers and Copeland, that were both approved. So I guess what we're looking to see, do we want to transfer 48 from Copeland to Extreme Divers? The financials are about a wash. It's a minimal difference. Yes.
One of the differences was that we were in Copeland with the coconut match, and Extreme was going to do the geotextiles, and there was a preference for the coconut match because of being able to save some activity.
Well,
On that.
so in speaking with Brad, where he's going to be adding this is on the bank, which is the littorals are currently pretty much in the water. So it will have a minimum interruption on the existing littorals on 48. I think it'll be a good fit. He doesn't have to reach into the pond and interrupt any of the existing littorals. It has a very good littoral base around the whole perimeter. Complete opposite of 47, which has nothing.
Could you just detail in case anyone doesn't know where 47 and 48 are?
47, if you go up Cypress Grove, past the first stop sign on Carina, between Julia and the second roundabout on the right side is 47. There is a fishing area along Cypress Grove. Very few people ever fish on it because it's not a big pond to begin with, but with no littorals, there's not a lot of fish. I've spoken to a couple fishermen and so that is 47. 48 is the backside of pond 47 is Vitale, which runs from Julia to Carina. On the other side of Vitale is 48. It's a landlocked, you don't see it. It's only the people that live there. It's even a little smaller pond. But that's where 47 and 48 are.
And the map's on the wall.
There's a map over there if you need any further idea. But so, nobody's really seen 48 other than Peggy. Because she lives on it. That borders Vitale, Julia, and Carina. So to stay on our schedule, one option would be to transfer that pond over to Extreme Divers.
Or to accept this lower bid, or to accept the document bid. They bid them. Copeland backed out. The
Yes.
next one up is.
The next one up is Extreme. So
Accept it.
it would be just a matter of accepting his bid. He was the only other one who put in a bid. So it doesn't have to go back out to bid.
Does he have capacity?
He does have capacity if it'll be close. Again, everything is contingent on our weather. If we have another 14, 15-inch rain event like we had last year, early in the rainy season, that'll make it a little tougher. But without him having to go into the pond to reclaim fill, it makes it a little less impactful for him to have it done now while the ponds are so low. So I don't think, and in talking with him, he doesn't feel that he will have a problem in fulfilling the terms of the contract.
But we need to get it moved.
But we do need to get it moving. Again, these are not big contractors. He has calendars and he has to keep his people employed. So, he would like to do the work while he's going to do 47 first. While his crew is there, he would then immediately start them on 48. So I think there is a benefit of us, while we have the funding, to keep it on schedule. So I
I need a
guess
motion for someone to say, let's move the contract from 548.
Make the motion.
Copeland to Extreme.
Second.
Just for the record, state your names for the first and second.
You have a vote? In favor, aye. Any opposed?
But this will go to impact this week. Or
If I can get it in on the agenda, we'll.
take to the board to talk. Be great. So then we'll get back on schedule.
Jim, What is the estimated schedule? Do they,
Better than Copeland's. Copeland had 7 other ponds in the queue before us. Yeah, so I think that was one of the reasons, one of probably many reasons Copeland backed out of the contract based on the proposal.
One of the advantages that Extreme has with our, we're very flexible. So if he has a pressure job somewhere, past, we've always just said,
Yeah.
get to us when I can, and he does. So. Also, prices,
so the goal is to, before rainy season, to get it done.
get a vote done this
Yes.
year.
And one of two drivers, one is obviously to get the work done before the banks turn to mush. But also we need to get littorals planted. And I really don't want to wait a year.
Another year, right? Yeah.
And now there's say 47 that has no littorals. You know, I don't want to go a year and then if we have windstorms and now you're already starting to generate some erosion. So, and littorals, you don't just pick them up and drop them in and everything is good. It's, you know, it's a couple of year process. So I really don't want to lose a year. You know, so that's why we're hoping to get that done. Have Solitude coming out in the end of March to give a bid for 37, which is what we did last year. 36, right. Hopefully they're done doing whatever remediation work they have to do before then, because I don't want to plant anything and have some equipment come in and have stuff, you know, disrupted. So again, that's another big pond with very minimal littorals that, you know, I need to get stuff planted so we can start building a shoreline to protect our investment in it.
And just to reinforce what Jim said for those that may not know, have littorals in all of the old Pelican ponds. We weren't as vigilant in getting the new Pelican ponds littoralized, for lack of a better word. And we're already seeing the result of that indecision. By having to do 36 last year, 47 and 48, whereas the ponds in Pelican have been there 20 years. But have littorals, we haven't squat. Vital.
You know, there is, you know, questions, you know, we have 2 different lake maintenance companies. He's doing one,
Right.
2 completely different circumstances for him, but, you know, I expect Solitude, which has new Pelican Preserve, to well manage the growing littorals, do whatever they need to do to encourage littorals as opposed to spraying them back, which I believe is a problem we had a number of years ago when we had littorals and they went away.
Took the eye off the prize.
Yes, can't go back and, you know, so it's, but moving forward, I know I was made aware of one pond that they sprayed pretty aggressively, probably within the last week or two. So there's a very big ring of dying littorals.
43.
There's no mistake on the corner of Cypress Grove and Prado.
Yeah, no
You
mistake.
look to the left, you're going to see yellow. Daylight's out of it. There's
I had a
no-
resident get a hold of me and request that some littorals be removed from behind his property based on our policy. And
Mhm.
then he called me a week later. He says, you know, I just wanted a little bit.
It was all-
That's all I asked for.
But I will be addressing that, you know, seeing is there a reason for it to appear that aggressive?
Probably
There's
like
If there's a good reason, but again, you know, we have contracts coming up. We have to have a degree of comfort that, you know, they will do no harm. But that's pond 48. We have, we're moving on from the 48 recommendation to the lake maintenance easement discussion. No moaning. In with on 47 and 48, we were made aware of some changes to the lake maintenance easement requirements. Originally, there was going to be a 20-foot,
There is.
at this point in time, there still is a 20-foot clear cut requirement. There will always be a 20-foot.
Let me help you with this, if I may. There's a 20-foot lake maintenance easement for every pond in Pelican and Gateway. Period. Ponds in Pelican have the same requirement as Gateway. The
And
difference
whose
is
requirement is that? Just
It's
Florida.
It's South Florida.
It's a Lee County and South.
And it's a legal requirement. It's in your plot when you bought the house. You were helping me understand if I go wrong. When we were doing ponds in Gateway over the last next number of years, they have trees as close as 5 feet to the water. Clearly, that's a problem. If you tried to go between that tree and the lake, your equipment would roll into the pond. There wasn't enough room to do it. Rather than constantly having residents over there come before the board to get a waiver of this requirement, statement that recommend or a policy at the recommendation of statement that we're going to have a policy to be clear about the 20 feet. Unbeknownst to me at that time was the influence would have over here. Since then, the board has had reconsidered that at the last meeting, and I think it's going to be subject to the next board meeting. But we're going to adopt a more flexible approach that says we're going to have an engineering company from the ponds work group, from staff and the contractors that says we're going to work on a pond. That's the only time this comes up for discussion, is we're going to work on a pond. If we're going to work on a pond, we'll look at it and see if there's 10 feet, at least, maybe 12 feet, and there's no problems. We will waive the requirement for the 20 feet because we don't care about that other 8 or 9 feet. So that is going to be reconsidered at our next meeting, but the board has pretty much agreed going to do that. Impact the Pelican is requirement to keep the 20-foot easement will not change. We just won't enforce it. We're going to do the 10-foot that we need, and we'll notify those homeowners that have trees in the 20-foot that we recognize you've got shrubs, plants, trees, fire plants, whatever. We're not going to enforce it on this occasion, but that does not in any way restrict our right to do it in the future if we're going to do a more aggressive pond repair.
And Bob, where's the 20 feet from? Is it from?
So if you look on LEAP, it's there. I'm not going to give you an answer because you got to look at your LEAP on that. It's individual to every home.
Isn't it 10 feet in the water?
No, I'm not going to answer that. It's on the map when you bought the house.
there is no cut and fast thing that you can say it's 10 feet. in the
Right.
water.
They're all different.
Each plot is different.
It's based off of property pins
Yeah.
and where your property falls on the contour of that lake as it was designed.
Sure.
So is this a Lee County ordinance?
State of Florida.
It's a state.
A state ordinance?
State of Florida.
Water management
What about it?
slash.
There you've got all kind of easements on your property, right? Utility easements, water management.
Conservation area.
It goes on and on and on. This happens to be one of them.
But it's state.
It is mandated, yeah.
Yeah.
And when you bought your home, you got all that information.
Do we have a
Wait a minute, Rick.
Yeah, hot wire. And they're wired in that easement.
That's fine.
Because
So we're all aware of it.
Yeah,
Because we-
utilities are, it's in an easement. It's really to maintain the ability for them to access in the event that they have work to do. If they had to bring in heavy equipment and a dump truck, they need 20 feet. That's an ochre statement, but if they had to bring in some big equipment, hence the 20-foot. Now, for what we do in pond maintenance, it's a small,
We're doing.
they can do it,
Under 200,000. And Gateway, they're spending millions. And they need it because they're dredging, bringing in crushed stone, heavy equipment, all that stuff. So it's an order of magnitude type of thing.
But the littorals can't go more than 10 feet from the edge of the bank.
Not talking littorals.
littorals that can come,
That's
they
totally
can come in and just remove that. That's all. Well, yeah.
Littorals in the water.
Just to further clarify with what Joe was saying, each contractor knows that the hotwire lines.
Yes, everything is, irrigation is run back there too. We have to water the grass. So there, and,
FPL, I mean, there's just so many.
when we did the contract on 36, it's an account, they understand, acknowledge the need for them to know where the utilities are and the irrigation is, and to make sure everything is made right again as part of their work.
The bottom line of this discussion is that the Board of Supervisors at Gateway is reconsidering our late maintenance easement policy. That's the takeaway.
Okay,
Will on 47, are they going to, my property is got the red X on it for the 20-foot. I want to know, when will I know for sure that they're not going to go in?
Right now, the board physically hasn't, but it's gonna happen because the board's already agreed.
Right.
And we'll make it official at the next meeting. You won't have to do it.
so our next step is we're in the process of contracting somebody to come and do a survey. After the survey, we'll be walking the pond with the understanding of what's needed by the contractor to do the work. And at that point, we will identify any trees encroaching that need to be
But if
addressed.
you're not within 10 feet, you don't have to take the water down. Right? No.
You'll get a notice letting you know that you have, let's say, you have a palm tree that encroaches in a 20-foot. We don't need you to do anything with it. That's,
Yeah, no,
but
you could.
And if you,
if something happens and they need to bring in heavy equipment and that comes in the way, that at that point, that,
But it doesn't make any sense to me is, you put out a bid to a contractor to do this work. If I'm a contractor, I gotta make sure that I can do that work, and I should be telling you what the hell I need to do
you're
to
right.
do the work.
That's what's done.
And-
But it's like you're doing it ass backwards here.
we know from the contractors what amount of space they will need. And again, every pond is different. We have all different conditions. We have some steep banks, short banks that, maybe a tree will have to get pulled. I haven't identified any at this point in time. If I did it on my pond behind my house, I'd probably have to lose 2 palm trees that the builder put in.
But to specifically answer your question, what you described is exactly what happens. The problem came in because of the edict from Gateway, that everything in the 20-foot's got to come out. And that's the thing that's being mentioned.
Okay.
Was there not, when these residences were built, was there not a setback required? Then how are we getting trees within 10 feet of the
Because
bank?
people put it there. WCI put it
WCI.
So
there. Lennar put it there.
let me inject real fast. When you have a development order for landscaping, there's a development order that does the whole pond for construction and everything of the initial infrastructure build out. There is a landscaping portion to that tells you for that pond or that lake what the littoral requirements are and what the tree planting requirements are. And they're bare minimum standards, and they're native trees if they are planted native trees. So trees like cypress trees, we typically will go around because they're native and they're a requirement per the DO. As residents build and add landscape or add a pool or bring in new landscape for palm trees that are non-native according to that DO, those are the trees that we're looking at. It's not the native trees that were platted for that development order and put out in that development.
So nobody looked there.
Yeah.
So is the architectural committee aware of
They are
this?
becoming aware. They
They're
want-
becoming, we're working on a document to bring to the board to hopefully have the ACC give this, whenever anybody puts in for a thing at a pool or a lanai, just to be aware
What the setback?
what the setback is, where to look to see it, because nobody's been told.
No.
Nobody paid attention.
So
We are now.
Well, but nobody's said, be aware, if you want to spend $15,000 on the back, you know, you can
Go ahead.
do it,
Yeah,
but
Well, the
it
city,
we may come and
they
take it
may
out.
come and take it away with
But
no
the
compensation.
electric box is out front.
Yeah.
Everybody plans this front. But everybody knows that if FPL pulls it back because they gotta do work, FPL ain't gonna replace it.
Yeah.
Right.
You're putting them there, you're ready.
and the city and the county will permit a lanai or a pool right up to that lake maintenance easement. They won't allow it to go past or into it, but then everybody says, I'm going to put my landscaping behind, right, to make it pretty and to give it that curb appeal. But there's no checks and balances into that planting going on. They're only going to look at the building structure. Yeah.
But
they
there
don't-
seems to be, from just driving around, where that setback, if there isn't, if there even is one, it seems to be on common area. Like if you go around Pond 43, I don't see how he can get around that turn from Cypress to Prado behind all those hedges. I mean, that's
The
steep.
objective is to not take the whole community into clear cut.
Right.
The objective is to handle those ponds in which we're having problems and need to do work. So what you're talking about may come up in the future, may not.
Well, and again, common area and conservation area, there is no easement because
Okay.
they know we can
Yeah.
assess that, you know, it's really only identified where houses are.
Okay, so it's only residents that are.
And the only real focal point of all this is being able to get a grade, a slope on those banks
4-to-1.
that are manageable to drive, that are
Right.
manageable to, to skirt and walk on.
To meet the 4-to-1 and 6-to-1.
To meet the 4-to-1 or 6-to-1 slope, that is a requirement for that
The
individual
landscaper,
ponds.
don't-
Yeah.
That should tip over
Yeah.
into the pond.
This is just something we've evolved in.
So that lake management easement, we have discussed what it is, where we're going, how we're in the process of modifying it to better suit the community. Does anybody else have any questions on it?
I got one in terms of, when are we gonna start on 47? Second question is, what criteria when they are finished? What is my property going to look like where they have done their thing?
They'll be resodding up to the high water mark. So whatever if they, in trucks, destroyed any of the existing grass, that all gets resodded.
If your sprinkler heads are working, everything will be back to original state.
Okay. And actually start on 47.
If everything goes, probably in about 6-8 weeks.
Oh, is that much? Okay, I thought somebody said the end of February or whatever.
Well, no, everything, that was the original, but then when we got into the 20-foot.
He's working on a current pond, and when he's done,
Okay.
he plans on bringing that crew over. Again, we have to make sure we have, the
Yeah.
survey, everything,
Yeah.
a process, but we're on the schedule. Any other questions on lake management easement? Okay. Upcoming contract renewal, littoral management, aeration, and conservation management. So I know the last meeting, currently we have 2 contractors, benefit detriment, of keeping that. I was debating if there's an interest in having a workshop and having the contractors come in and explain from their perspective, can they give us a benefit if one person does both? I kind of like having 2 contractors because I have something to compare, even though it's apples and oranges. Old Pelican under Superior has a lot more work to do to maintain the littorals because the ponds are very well populated as opposed to the newer end of Pelican, which mostly is a little sparse or is in the process of growing in.
The way we got here years ago, this group had, at the time, it was aquagenics, do everything we had. But then as Cypress Grove took shape, WCI chose and Lennar chose a different supplier. So we didn't change that because otherwise we'd have to change the contract every time a lake came in. We just decided to pit the two against each other, quality, cost, and all that other stuff. Solitude was a hell of a lot cheaper than Aquagenics. And that's how we got to two, for anybody that wanted it. We just kept the old guy until Cypress Grove was totally built out. And that's the condition we have today.
So we can have, you know, if there's an interest by the board to have a workshop, if, you know, or we can just have, you know, a couple people discuss it with contractors to see, you know, what they have to offer. Is there anything, I know both companies offer a lot of different lake management services. My take is that, you know, I just want to make sure we're doing what's right for our ponds, for the littorals. Aeration is separate. We recently re-leveled all that and had all that taken care of. So there should be no changes on the aeration. So it's just going to be the management, which is a contract. And then if a pump goes bad, you know, the cost to replace. But
We only have one aeration supplier and one aeration installer in the entire community. That's one of the things that we did keep.
Right.
Same with conservation. Wherever the conservation area is, it's one guy that does it.
Yeah, so Solitude handles conservation throughout the
I
community.
don't think it does.
Superior.
I deal with Solitude, I deal with Brian for
For
conservation.
conservation? Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
conservation. They handle the whole community?
Yes, he does, he does all,
Yeah, okay, right.
it's not split between the two.
But they do handle ponds too, I didn't realize we did ponds. Solitude.
Yeah, it's just in a different,
Different division of Solitude.
division.
So the guy I'm talking to doesn't do the ponds.
correct, correct.
But this group saved a hell of a lot of money when we redid the conservation area. What did that say, it was 80 grand a year? When you went out for bids last time?
Which company responds better if we have an issue?
Well, you know,
There's not a whole response.
well,
They
you know,
visited twice.
it's hard to, it's hard
That's why
to
you respond.
say on the littoral management, because again, you have such a different requirement from the two companies. We have a lot more tickets going to Superior because we have a lot more littorals. If we identify, if any of the pond people, walkers, notice that it's getting thick, they'll submit a ticket. You don't really have that issue in Solitude because it's not, it hasn't matured enough. There's little bits and pieces where we'll see something and a ticket will be issued, but am I correct in that, Lynn?
Right, and they've been, there's been several in the past, I don't know, 6 months, several homeowner requesting, removal of littorals behind the properties and things like that. And they've been very good, at least in my interactions with them. I communicate and then they respond. And usually the next time their technicians are here, they address it. And they actually bring up some good, you sure you want to do that? The last one, we put out, it was, or requested, she came back and double, you sure you want to do this? Because on the one hand, you're saying we want littorals around the ponds, and now you want us to come in and kill them. And so they actually, she said, we recommend as your provider or whatever, that you don't do this. And I said, well, thank you for the recommendation, but that's sort of the policy. And it was supposed to be a 10-foot
Yes.
spot, right? And
Yes.
and so I don't know what happened in this pond 43, if they had some newbies.
Well, I don't think it goes all the way to the bank. I think they had the boat in, so they sprayed it from the water.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't spray from the bank, they sprayed from the
You know,
water,
so it was,
but they were pretty indiscriminate.
but it was pretty thick.
Oh, yeah.
Usually I see, I'm more familiar with the Superior area. Again, they'll have about a foot of sprayed area that dies off, with the idea being that it generates less boating debris, which is always a sore spot for the residents.
Yes, thanks.
Not only that, but the smell as it dies.
Well, yeah.
Pretty bad. But I mean, to add to what Lynn said, I mean, I'm not getting that many requests, but when I do, I let them know exactly what the policy is. You know, say, can you take out my littorals? Yes, we can take out littorals, but we will not take out more than 40% of whatever your frontage is. And it will be buffered in the center and on both ends of your property line. So you'll have a small area here, a small area, and a buffer on either side. And they're okay with that.
You could bring a fish.
Right.
Yeah, and the reason.
If you can fish, you can bring a fish to the bank.
To acknowledge we have fish.
Right.
That's what did it. When somebody just says, I don't like it, I want it out.
Yeah, well, too bad.
You don't do that.
I know when I was walking ponds, I spoke to a number of homeowners and it was a lot of, was just explaining the benefits of littorals and why it's important to have it. And there are, there's a lot, and, naturally, most people don't understand because they didn't need to.
Plus we're mandated.
Plus we're mandated. Joe, yeah.
Question, since we missed out on the first contract, and we have to go through the approval processes, which will take 2 weeks minimum. Did we
Not for 47. 47.
47's going. 47, there's no change. 48, that's one.
Yeah, should we not maybe contact those people and have a handshake deal? We're going to be giving this to you. This is what we need to do to finish up.
Because,
so
yeah.
we don't get sold out before they're filled up.
And that we're, once, since we have approval, while it's not fully approved, I'll let them know that it's in the pipeline and they
Just
will,
trying to protect.
What you said is exactly what happened.
they will, keep it on your schedule.
Okay, great.
So the upcoming contracts, these are all under the 200, the 195. So it doesn't have to go to a formal
You can
bid.
do it informal.
From Gateway, who do you, again, I don't feel that we have to stay with who our current providers are. If I can get better service by somebody else.
Yeah. Well, Gateways is a much larger contract, dollar sign wise, right?
108.
Yeah, 100 plus. We've been using historically Cross Creek. This year. We just awarded to Met Tower Environmental. So there was a change up that we're about to undergo and working with that transition right now. We use a singular vendor. So
To do all.
To do all.
They also do the pond bank restoration work. So they're obviously.
yeah, they have a portion of their company for Met Tower Environmental that does lake bank restoration.
You said that the cost is under the 200,000.
Yes, so we don't have to.
For the Pelican side of the house, you can do an ITQ.
Well, I mean, I could use it. Thank you, but we're talking conservation management, aeration.
You can still,
They're different.
yeah, no,
They're
it's
still under.
it's still underneath the threshold, dollar threshold.
Threshold.
That was a major accommodation by the district in Pelican to give it this lower possible alternative.
Right, so when
Just
with
for
the,
reference purposes, when we did 36, we tried to do it under the old system.
Mhm.
We had bids for $180,000 to do Lake 36. We ended up at 360,000. And we realized that we could have done it so much cheaper. So we worked with the district and staff and it came up with the agreement. It's done to accommodate Pelican. The way we are repairing our banks is very, very different than what they do over there. They're spending $17 million a week repairing pond banks. We haven't spent $1 million in the last 4 years. Where the order of magnitude of cost.
Or is it a different process they're using?
Absolutely.
Different means and methods.
Absolutely.
Starting from a different spot.
Yes.
He started and was working on it over the last 20 years, whereas this is kind of eye opening.
No
And
maintenance,
7 years or so.
no maintenance, and all of a sudden you gotta get it fixed.
well, I also hope that with the amount of littorals we have, that's also helped minimize some of the
Absolutely.
degradation.
Like taking care of your car, right? Take care of your
Yeah,
car.
if you maintain
Less
it,
problem.
might not always like to bring it in.
Before Latour, the Avila Pond, had such an erosion problem that from the top, where the grass was to the pond, it was a 5 foot drop. 5 foot. We don't have anything like that now. We fixed it. That's where you see the crushed stone. Vulnerable to the same things that have to be gateway we responded to.
So Jim, back to your thought of how do you want to approach these? Now, had yourself or one other member of our subcommittee working with some people that weren't on the subcommittee, you guys could go off and do the yeoman's work on it and not have to involve Gateway with a meeting and a workshop. It might be beneficial to have that kind of approach. If you feel you got the right people, if you don't have the right people, that's crucial.
I'm sure that I'll be able to find somebody who would make some time to work with me, not on the board. And we can always come up with a recommendation. Again, the board has the power, if you would like to have a meeting with them and discuss with them, or what is the board's feel?
No, we had the ITQ. Daniel's a big 8 to us.
Yeah.
You have 2 people here in the engineering firm, but there's no reason to not have it for the process.
I would like to work with Daniel and see what our outside options are, just to make sure that, I don't want to have an assumption that we have the best cost solutions for our ponds without looking outside. I would just like to investigate further to see, is there any additional level of service that we can get cost effectively that will provide a benefit to the community
For these 4 components.
cost effectively. Again, you could buy a Bentley.
Under the contract for the floral management, aeration, and conservation.
Right. Well, each one's different. Each one's a different contract. The aeration is real basic. Conservation management, there's no change. Everything is mandated, what they can and cannot do,
And
how often it needs to be done. I
what are your thoughts?
I mean, I'd be happy to assist. It doesn't,
We pay them.
no sweat off my back to help you scope it out and put it out on the streets for solicitation, and then bring back what our findings are. If we're able to make anything better, or if you want to continue forward with the same contractor. I mean, ultimately, you want to refresh the numbers from the contractors that you have on hand at the moment, see where they're at, see if inflation hit their numbers, or if there's a better vendor out there. I mean, generally, what I've seen from the people that will apply to these and give you proposals, they all offer roughly about the same magnitude of services. So it boiled down to a dollar sign for you. So I think it'd be more competitive to take it back out and see what you get. And I'd happily help.
Has Gateway used Solitude?
I believe we have.
It seems like, we had a little, Hour was worked with us on,
The bio pond.
on Pond 34. But I guess it's hard to compare that, because that was expensive. And it was
3 times the cost.
yes, and it was sort of an experimental. It was an experimental thing, and but it seemed like at the couple of meetings we had with them, thought that they were a little more expensive than the ones we went with. I mean, for the general maintenance, not for the bio stuff.
Right. I don't remember.
Yeah.
It's might have been right. Good.
Yeah.
A lot of it.
Okay. Well,
Cross Creek did just lose the Gateway contract to Met Tower, so I'm sure they're looking to get in the door somewhere as well. So to pick up the slack of what they lost in compensation there.
And were you otherwise satisfied with them?
I was, yeah. If it was a one-off.
When you said I was. See,
The general consensus over the past year and a half that I've been with the district, I've only heard one thing reported of somebody driving on grass, and it happened to be a board member's wife. So that person was pretty vocal about not liking that contractor, but I mean, you're going to have those items. It's going to happen
Yeah.
inevitably, whether it's Cross Creek Met Tower, anybody underneath the sun. It doesn't matter who it is, you know. Once you got a guy out there running around with a gator or some sort of ATV to do the work that they need to do, I haven't had any major issues that they haven't been responsive to.
And again, both Superior and Solitude, to me, have been doing a good job. I know my interactions with Solitude, they had a fish kill on one of the ponds back in Prado a few months ago, and they were very responsive. They had a person out there the next day doing oxygen level tests and, you know, making sure that it's not something that they verified they had not treated that pond with anything in some time, so it was not that.
Golf course runoff.
Well, you can't prove anything, but it was a heavy rain right after they fertilized on their regrowing the grass on an ibis hole. So
Naturally
odds
occurring.
are-
We call that naturally occurring.
In 15 years of generation, this is the first fish going.
Oh, the second one.
We used to have record.
We had one 15 years, but 10 years ago.
Well, I said prior to
We
Right,
put
aeration. Aeration has worked to keep us with it.
I'm the contact person for Solitude on the conservation area. Just last couple of months. And Brian is the supervisor. And I have his cell phone number as far as responses. I call him up, he talks to me, we meet. So my impression of Solitude is that they're very responsive in the conservation area anyways.
That's important.
It is, because again, an existing contractor has a benefit as a known entity, as opposed to somebody new coming in.
Who was that? Solitude? Because when we had
Woods
woods
of
and
conservation, for conservation.
woods and wetlands were pretty expensive. Maybe change.
No, and they answer their questions whenever somebody has a question is filtered up. I saw somebody doing this, or what
Yeah.
about this? They've been,
Yeah, 'cause
we're getting
In that
answers.
situation, I took a weekend for him to get back to me, but he got back to me.
Yeah.
And I had an answer for their
You know.
resident.
Okay. Upcoming contract discussions. I'll find somebody else. I'll work with Daniel to reach out to outside vendors to see what the costs are. I'll also speak with Solitude and Superior to, have them do their sales pitch, see if there's something else that they, that they could do better or they can offer. Any other questions on now this is not due until November, I believe, is when the contract expires. So we have some time, not a lot of time. So,
September 30.
okay, so this is something that will, I will take on, we'll come up at hopefully by the next meeting with an update and where our investigations are leading.
So we'll take the original contracts that exist now. You, myself, and Nathan can sit down. We'll rescope it if it needs to be tweaked. We'll get that information out the door and we'll schedule interviews with vendors that actually want to apply. Do a non-mandatory pre-bid meeting if they'd like to get feedback, answer any questions up front before we actually push the ITQ out the door. And then at that point, we'll just go into a cone of silence long enough to get the bids back. We're typically like 15 days we're trying to aim for right now.
Mhm.
And then we can bring it back to the committee to make a motion if deemed necessary, or corrections or course correct.
Any other questions on the upcoming contract renewals? That is our open items for discussion, member items. Peggy, ticketing system?
I'm gonna be looking at Kindle here because, I was told by Kelsey that in first quarter they were going to be making great.
We have made great progress. Yeah. So we finally got our system to be able to allow us to do work orders to vendors. So we're in like the trialing phase of that. We had to go back to Cartograph and have their software engineers actually modify the system to allow us to do it so that the vendors only see the work order and they can't see the whole system. They just see what we submit to them. This will help us out as see-click fix items come in for requests for action. We'll be able to transpose into our asset management system, which is where all the work orders will then be created from. So, yeah, they worked it out for us, and we're like the beta for these guys as they develop out that system. But the workflow that we're envisioning and hoping, a resident puts in a item, it goes from see-click fix into Cartograph. Staff is notified. We look at it and validate if it's an item that even warrants our action, whether it's a gateway asset or a Pelican asset to do anything with, because we all know there's a lot of spaghetti bowl of who owns what. So we've got to have, there's still going to be a human factor in there to say, yes, this is ours or not to action. If it is something that it belongs to us and it's a contractual item, say a Solitude or something to that effect, staff will be able to create a work order from that request directly to the vendor. Vendor will get the work order, go complete the work on ground, take pictures, submit a report on that ticket for him for his work order. Staff will see that the work order has been completed, make sure he gets paid for the work that was done, and then back to the customer to say, well, what were the after effects or the outcomes of what happened, and close out the ticket. Yep, that's there. We got that built in as well, so everybody will get notified.
Will that accept photos?
It does. It generally accepts 1 to 5 photos. So
Now,
yeah, and then on the backside on the work order, getting a photo as well, and then updating asset. So Cartograph, I didn't design the system. It does open, it does close, it doesn't do in the middle. It's on staff to track it through the pipeline as it's going. So I am now trying to do monthly pulls from see-click fix because I can pull a report and then filter it all out to really what you think is prevalent, boil it down to just Pelican. You can get it from staff. I don't believe that we have the license for that many people to be able to pull the reporting, but staff can pull the reporting. I figured it out. It takes me about 5 minutes to get into the system, log in, filter it down, and get a product out that'll tell you what's open and what's been closed. You'll actually get the whole report. You'll actually see all of Gateway, but I'll filter everything down to where you won't see that. Or you can do that. You can do that.
so now would this be using see-click fix?
The intent would be to transition away from the part that we do with Passarella.
So upon Walker, if he wants to submit a ticket, would go into see-click fix and submit it. It would be vetted by somebody in Gateway, assigned to the contractor that has the littorals are too thick.
When it comes into Gateway, the chair for each committee, if it's some Pelican centric, they get a copy of that as well as it comes in. And then from there, a work order gets created separately to a vendor to say, go action this work.
Can we do a tutorial and reach the point?
We're trialing it. I'm trying to use 2 different vendors right now as a guinea pig to see if I can make it work. There's a training factor on their end because they're not used to having to, use the software to fill out the report for the work order. So I've got to work through some of that with them and see what that's going to look like.
Now,
And
what would happen if a resident submits it like they do now? Generally, we need to locally vet it. Is this a valid? I want to get rid of the littorals behind my house, and we need to know. Okay, well, are you a fisherman? Is there a valid reason for this? And that you realize that you can only have, I'll say a 10-foot ban.
Yeah.
I would just want to make sure that something doesn't bypass us.
It shouldn't bypass anybody as long as the chairs are engaged on the automation that comes in for the emails. The system generates straight to the chairs, and they get to see it at the same time that I get to see it.
And it does not generate.
No, it doesn't create a work order right off the bat. The discussion at first with Chelsea was like, Chelsea wanted it to generate straight to a vendor. And I was like, whoa, QA/QC this first to make sure it's even a valid request that falls in our purview that we're, the owner operator and entity on that needs to go and action this item.
Removing the littorals, I thought we voted on that we had to go through the fishing.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
But that doesn't.
But that's why I want to make sure that there's a process. Now, say I get an email, I can't put a note against that ticket.
No.
I could see it,
You can see it.
but I can't
We
put
have
a,
to direct it to
You can direct it to myself. Yeah. And
Okay.
So internally in the system, there's a note section for staff. So that's how we keep track of open items that we're actioning. As soon as somebody receives it and starts making some forward progress on it, and staff does an internal note in Cartograph that says XYZ, we're doing this on this date. We expect to see whatever by this date. And then we come back to it every week. It'll auto populate again. If there's still an open item that hasn't been closed, every week it hits our inbox again. Just, we have it set up on an automation. So trust me, I try to get them all done as quickly as possible because I get tired of seeing the emails. Because the automation just sends it back to me every week. So.
going away regardless.
And I'm pressing hard on it as well because ultimately it's a system of systems. It's not just, I know what we want it for here is just to be able to make sure that the work is getting to a vendor and being completed and the tickets being closed out. But for me, I'm working with GIS to categorize and asset tag all of our assets across the board. So now you have a mapping system that ties to see, click, fix. So when somebody goes to click on something and say, I have, they know where it is. And then at that point, it's, hey, that's not an asset that we manage, or it is, proceed. So the GIS side of it, the see, click, fix side of it, the asset management side of it, where now I'm controlling and being able to see trends with things being broken in our system of record for assets and our work order system. And then eventually I'm going to build out our business central side that will do the financials attached to all of that. So we can depreciate it. I can track truck hours, manpower hours, materials being used, time spent. So I'm trying to make it an all-encompassing system.
One fast thing, Bob has to leave in a second, so just an update from Bob on anything.
Two quick
Yes.
comments, so everyone's just aware. Bill is retired.
Mhm.
A lot of you had interaction with Bill. Stephanie's gonna be taking it. That's number one. Secondly, all of our aeration cabinets, the pedestals, all of that is now being checked for anything. And Ed Hedges is doing that, just information for you. It's coming. Don't expect any issue. But we're gonna make sure we're legitimate in that.
Okay, on the same vein, at the next president's meeting, that's gonna come up about corroded green boxes. Do we own any of those?
That's all utilities, that's the cable company,
None of our.
irrigation,
Stainless steel.
it's all irrigation, a lot of ugly.
None are ours.
Okay. Let's see, Harold, anything from the conservation? Pete, anything with,
Signs or street drainage, no.
I see, Extreme Divers has been on the property for, it seems like forever. I have seen them doing work. They're not just parking their trucks here. So, they're continuing to do our pond interconnects.
They're done. They're complete. As of
They're
last week,
complete?
I talked to Brad and he told me that they were done.
Okay, so that was
Because he's getting ready to shift off of this project and then start cleaning the Basin 1 culverts as well. So everything that we drain out from here into, he's about to start cleaning those.
Okay, good, good. And, get up to the wet season. So let's keep everything being able to flush. Let's see, I know, everything that I had to cover. Any other members have any updates that I'm unaware of? Anything on fishing? How's it been?
It's not good. But I mean, and I don't know why it's not good. It's just not good. It's deteriorated over the years. I know we talked about a stocking program, and I know we have stocked in the past. My concern is that if we're going to reintroduce a new stock of grass carp,
I know that's a,
okay, because it would not make sense to stock game fish and grass carp, because the grass carp are going to eliminate the habitat for the game fish. So if we do, I don't recommend we do any stocking anywhere where we still have to do littoral planting. So
right.
47, 43, anywhere where there's fishing access for the general residents here. If we're going to be planting littorals, I would wait to stock. And the only stocking would be done for common area ponds having a priority. And then as we fulfill those needs, then if there's a landlocked pond or home-locked pond that would like to have some stocking, we can address that.
I think especially so we get the larvae, the mosquito and the bug larvae to have the fish helping us keep those down too.
Yeah. But if there's no habitat, there won't be any fish.
Right.
The best fishing is always, and pretty much always has been, on the flowway, because we don't do anything to the flowway. So it's natural habitat. The ponds, on the other hand, I mean, I used to be able to go to the back of my pond and catch some nice fish. I do, if I catch a Mayan cichlid, it comes up on the bank and it gets a knife through it, and I leave it for the birds. Well, the only other recommendation I would have, and it's not really part of the fishing, but if we could generate some kind of 1 or 2 paragraph notice to the different community HOA boards. So the Prado board, the Carina board, so that when I'm assuming they all have their own little newsletter that they put out. I know Prado does. Prado puts out a newsletter once a month. It would be nice if the ponds committee could just give a small 2-paragraph update so the residents know what we do. Most of the residents don't know what we do. They don't know what's required to maintain the ponds behind their house. They just think it's just water and it's there. They don't even realize that Gateway owns the water. So, they're always like, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? Hey, I'm going to go out and rip out these littorals if you guys don't come take them. Don't do that.
Yeah.
So it'd just be nice to give them, even if it's only twice a year, an update.
Or we could work something out, give them, because that is a good it is a good venue. And there's an easy distribution that, say, the President's Council, they have the ability to send it out to them.
Right.
For those communities that do have.
Right. They're already generating a newsletter.
The stocking.
Yeah. I mean, just to let them know what we're doing, it's like the ponds committee, what do they do? Well,
Even in the Pelican Preserve newsletter.
You could do it there too, but they're kind of full up.
I think everything gets buried though.
Yeah, it does.
It becomes collection.
Most people will go through that and just look for what they want to see. Well, when's pickleball open or something, where if it's your local HOA, if it's your neighborhood, you're a little more invested in seeing, hey, what's going on in Prado, what's going on in
2 pages.
Right, it's only 2 pages.
Much easier to read over quote.
Yeah,
President's Council.
yeah, exactly.
As soon as we have a major rain event, they know that ponds is not doing their job.
Well, yes, and we'll
Yeah.
hear that.
Well, I mean, I get asked all the time, why are the ponds so low? You
Yeah.
realize we have a wet season and a dry season,
Right.
right?
Well, we had, there was a lack of communication in advance of that one.
Right.
That'll, hopefully we, are able to provide updates of anything that would be noticeable.
Right.
They could let them go for rainy season?
No.
Ponds? This is where they are
This
for
is
rainy
it.
season.
This is it during dry season.
So who would do this letter? You?
Who?
Chairman, of course.
We'll find some. Yeah. All in favor of Doug doing it?
Second.
Okay, Doug's doing it. Okay, let's see, next meeting agenda. Anything to,
The date on the next meeting,
Oh, God.
sorry.
Of course, the calendar's not updated. I'd have to ask Georgia. I don't
Okay.
remember off the top of my head.
it's available online.
Well, it's not on the webpage right now because there's so many other meetings in between
Yeah.
now and then it doesn't show.
But, okay.
We'll get a 24-hour notice.
Yeah,
right?
at least to those of us that need to be notified.
Yeah.
Okay, vote to adjourn.
Second.
Second. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Huh?